everybody, it's Bryan, and you are listening to the Course Building Secrets podcast. Whether you're a coach or a CEO, the success of your team and clients is based on your ability to deliver a consistent experience and guide them on the fastest path to results. This podcast will give you practical, real-life tips that you can use today to build your online experiences that get results and create raving fans. Why? So you can monetize your expertise and serve more people without adding more time or team to your business. If you're looking to uncover your $1 million framework, package it, and use it to scale, you're in the right place. Let's dive in. Hey everybody, welcome to the Course Building Secrets podcast. Today I have Lisa Barnett as our special guest. So welcome, Lisa. I'm so happy to have you here today. Lisa has a company called Akashic Knowing, and she is going to talk to us today about how she has built a business around that, both from a teaching perspective and from a practitioner perspective. So welcome, Lisa. Happy to have you here today.
Thank you. I am excited to be here and share kind of spiritual business building ideas.
Excellent. And I love that because so much of the time, I think our listeners and other people, as they're sort of getting started in their business, are told, oh, you can only build a business on other business practices, right? How to make more money, how to build your relationships, how to build wealth, all those different things. So I love the fact that you're coming to the table with something just a little bit different. Can you tell us about your business and how you got it started?
Absolutely. So might be helpful to start with just what the Akashic Records are, because it is a spiritual business, and it's something that a lot of people are not actually familiar with yet. So the Akashic Records are the recording of your soul's journey from the beginning of time, really, until your soul eventually returns home. And so everything we actually are, every lifetime we've lived, and I, of course, believe in multiple lifetimes, everything is recorded in this energy that we call the Akasha. It translates to sky or ether. It's a Sanskrit word. Akasha or Akashic is a Sanskrit word. And the idea is that your soul's journey, and actually your business's journey, is recorded in this etheric energy. So basically the idea is that I do Akashic Record readings and healing sessions for clients to help them understand who they are in a bigger way as a soul, why they came to this life, why they picked the family they picked, maybe why they're interested in writing that book or starting that business. Because we're not just these very simple little souls like we appear in a singular body and a singular life. We're so much bigger and more expansive. And so that information and wisdom helps to support us in our life and, of course, in creating a business aligned to our soul's purpose and plan.
Wow, I love that. I think that that's so fascinating. So for our people, as you're sort of explaining this, can you give us a tactical example? Like what kinds of things do you discover about people as you're looking at the records?
Absolutely. So before we embody, we write a soul plan. And in that plan are the soul contracts that we have with people in our life. So we might write a contract with our parents, with our siblings, of course, with our significant partners or spouses, with our children. We write contracts to support each other in our life. So that could be a best friend. It could be a business partner. So we have many, 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 probably 40, 50 soul contracts that we want to experience in our lifetime. Each lifetime we write new contracts with different souls. Sometimes they're some of the same souls, but we make a big plan. And part of that plan is, what talents do I want to share with humanity? What talents do I want to share with my family? right? With my community. And so we have a variety of gifts and talents that we've come to share with the world. And often that will lead us to create a business, our own, right? Our own business.
Wow. So, okay, you have to keep unpacking it because I'm very I'm a very tangible person. So I have to keep. So how does this come out in your life? Like, are you working with people who are searching because they don't know, like there's some misalignment, or they don't know their purpose, or there's something that's missing? Like, how do you know that you're, like, when you're working with someone, what they need?
Yeah, so great question. I have people from all walks of life that come to me for consultations and healing. And for some people, they come to me because they've had a lot of trauma. They may have been born into an abusive family. They may wonder why they had that experience, why they're struggling to make a living, why they can never find a loving partner. And that could be one person because they have a lot of trauma, or that could be three different people. One person may come to me and say, I've been married for 30 years, but I think my soul contract is complete. Can you ask in my Akashic Records and see if that's true? I don't want to kind of create any negative energy in my life. I don't want to miss the lesson if there was something for me to learn. I don't want to leave them if I have a support contract with them, right? So a lot of times people will say, is this relationship still in alignment with my soul and what I've come to do? And that could be a marriage. It could be a business partner. It could be a child sometimes, or a parent. And so it becomes helpful for many of us to kind of understand the bigger picture of our relationships, because they really are not just random relationships that show up in your life. And I think the interesting thing to know is that we have soul contracts with many of the people in our life, but not all of them. So sometimes we have that parent or that even child that we don't feel a very deep connection with. We don't understand why. We often blame ourselves. We think there's something wrong with us. How come I don't have any connection to that person? But sometimes it's because we literally do not have a soul contract with them to be any deeper than kind of a cursory relationship. And what I find is that when people understand that, it's something we kind of know in our heart. We maybe intuit if we think about things like that. But we often, again, kind of worry that we might goof things up or have some karmic pattern to pay back. And the interesting thing is that it doesn't actually work that way. If you've heard of karma, karma has often been considered like a punishment, but that is not true. Karma is our soul's desire to learn and grow. So we create challenging situations in our life. We create challenging relationships so that we can learn and grow around them. And sometimes that happens with our business. Sometimes we make a very logical, linear choice for our business, whether it's a partner or maybe it's a virtual assistant, or maybe it's somebody I'm going to work with around marketing. And nothing happens, nothing works out, everything kind of, just falls flat because they're not actually in alignment with who we are and who our soul, who our business is, right? Our actual business has its own Akashic Records that we can open separately and really ask in the business's records about next steps and even marketing and partnering and making choices that way. So it's pretty fascinating when we think about it.
That is fascinating. I feel like I need that sometimes in my business where it's like something's not clear or something's not moving forward as I want it to. Maybe it feels more difficult. Maybe I just need to to listen to what the records are saying, right?
Right, absolutely. And we literally open the records of your business compared to open the records of you as a person, as a soul.
Yeah, interesting.
Right now, of course, they're connected, especially if you're the sole proprietor. And I often will open the person's records and the business's records because I do find that they're very intertwined. But it's interesting because of different timing, kind of different trajectories sometimes that we get wrapped up in our own ideas, or maybe we're working with a coach and the coach says, do this. So kind of an interesting segue. For many years, I've been doing this, 25 plus years. And for many years, I've worked with business coaches, kind of off and on, to support me in growing a business. And they've often, and I'm going to say almost every single one of them, said, the Akashic Records is your secret sauce. You know how coaches often talk about that. What are the benefits? What is, all of this? The secret sauce is the Akashic Records, not that you need to talk about that. And I have always said, and I really believe that over all these years, it has, that knowing that I've received is that the Akashic Records have a vibration and an energy, and people are called to me and this work because they resonate with the vibrational energy of the Akashic field, whether they know what it is or not. I have had tons of people through the years come to me and say, I'm not really even sure what the Akashic Records are, but I really feel that there's some information there that will support my life or my business. And so I have always led with my marketing with the Akashic Records because it's a very unusual information and energy. And so what I realized long time ago, luckily, that your business coaches are not always right.
Don't tell people that.
It's important for you to listen to your own intuitive knowing and your own soul guidance. And if you can, your Akashic Record Keepers.
Yeah. Well, and what's interesting about that too, because it's so true what you're saying. And even if they don't recognize that maybe there's something bigger out there, it's when they get that feeling that what you're hearing and like, then you have to do it. And then you go, it doesn't feel right. That's where you're saying it's starting from, right? Is if it doesn't feel like there's alignment, then there's something that you're hearing or something that somebody's telling you, and it doesn't feel right, that could be then the kind of the bigger picture of really looking at there's other forces at play, like Akashic Records, that could help you kind of figure out what the right thing is that is aligned with your soul.
Right. And I know I've noticed over the years, really, especially probably over the last 5 years, there are a lot more business coaches who are coming out who are, really calling themselves heart-centered business coaches, intuitive coaches, right? Really wanting to help you align more energetically. But most, I would tend to say most of them are intuitives. There's maybe a couple of people who access the Akashic Records for business. My business partner happens to be one of them. And so, really understanding in a very deep soul way what your business is wanting to share with the world, really maybe what your business's purpose is in a bigger way, can really catapult the business.
Yeah. And then when you feel it, then you're just on a fast track. Like when you finally get that alignment, you're just like, whoosh.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Business coaches have looked at me over the years. Well, most of the people I know, honestly, and they are really often surprised and sometimes literally shocked how well my business does because it's such an esoteric kind of information. But it does well because, of course, there are thousands and thousands of people in the world who really are looking for a deeper soul guidance for themselves personally or for their business. And because I don't hide in any way, I'm very clear and upfront that I access the Akashic Records, which is, the guidance from your soul, that it works against all odds, against all the business coaching. Don't say that, no one will know what you're talking about. I'm like,
well, and that's the power of claiming your niche, right? And being able to really go in your niche. So you're attracting the right people because you're very specific about what it is that you're doing and what you're not doing. And I think that's so powerful. And I love that you brought that up, because I want to talk about kind of the nuts and bolts of your business and how it is successful. And I think that one of the things I'm really curious about is, how did you get into this in the first place? And then how did you get into it? Probably it was something that you were always it was something that came out of you energetically, but then how did you say, but I'm going to go and I'm going to create a business around this? And then I want to talk about kind of what your business is doing, but how did you get in this in the first place?
So the best way I can answer that is to say that I was actually born awake. So when I was 3 years old, I realized consciously that I was trapped in a human body. Okay. So I had that kind of like, oh my gosh, I want to go home. And I used to say that to my mother, who would say, but you are home, honey,
Okay. So that's super fascinating. I just going to stop you for just a second, because and I know we're on my podcast, but like my son always used to talk that way. So that's fascinating that you just said that, because he used to talk that way all the time. And he's like, I'm going to go home, and like my mom and like all this stuff. And I'm like, yeah, I'm right here. So that's super interesting that you're saying that kind of, ooh, okay, keep going.
Yeah. Well, and the reason I share that is that I know many mothers have experienced that with their children, and many people have experienced that themselves, but no one ever talks about it. No one ever validates that. But what that means for your son is that you have a very ancient and wise soul who has that memory of before being embodied. And sometimes we have a memory of our past life. There's interestingly many books that have now been written about children who could have a very specific like last life memory that could be researched and validated. So, mine were a little more vague, but I think as most of us, or many of us are, like maybe your son, but it is that consciousness. It's just a very kind of higher, a bit more expansive kind of consciousness. And so literally when I was a teenager, I still felt that way. And so I started to study and read the spiritual books that were coming out at that time. And so I was living in California. My parents moved here to San Francisco back in 1969. So it was like enough information. The Maharishi had just brought transcendental meditation to the US and was starting to work them with like the Beatles and the Beach Boys. Baba Ram Dass wrote Be Here Now. I think the first book I actually ever read as about a 13-year-old, 12-year-old, 13-year-old, something like that. And so I started to study, and I studied all the way through college. I studied philosophy in college, read everything I could get my hands on, kind of worked on my whole own theory about what the heck is going on out there in the world. And then I had my own traumas, and trauma is an interesting thing, the way it affects us. And sometimes trauma triggers us in waking up, and sometimes it doesn't. So my two very best friends in high school both died. And I was very angry because I was conscious and awake enough to know that I had a purpose and I had come to do something. And when they crossed, I felt abandoned, right? So I took it personally, which is really never a good thing to do, honestly, but I was a teenager and I did. So I actually ended up going on into the corporate world. I was in advertising for 15 years. I kind of said, screw it, I'm going to go make money. If I'm not supposed to do some spiritual thing because my friends have left, abandoned me, again, taking it personally, I'm going to go make money. I'm going to have fun. I'm going to travel. I'm going to party. It was the 70s and 80s in California, let's say. So, so I literally did that for about 15 years until another, we set up triggers in our soul plan. So another trigger, I actually came down with really bad chronic fatigue that built up over that 10, 15 years. And my acupuncturist was healing me. She said, but there's something your soul wants to tell you, and I don't know what it is. You have to go see my friend who's an amazing psychic. And I was like, okay, whatever. I don't know what's going on here anymore. I went to a psychic who said, you're a healer. And I was like, oh my God, I forgot. I knew that in high school. And I literally went back and started studying energy healing and psychic. I did a whole 6-year psychic training and energy healing. So I kind of woke back up again, was like, that's right. That's why I came, and got back on that path. Now, I did that for a few years, really as a intuitive energy healer. I had a little healing center not far from my house. I married and had a bunch of kids and had my little healing center here in the suburbs. And then I'd start to get this big, expansive information that was so different than anything I was getting psychically or intuitively for the healings. And it took me quite a few years to realize I was actually accessing the Akashic Records, because back then nobody talked about the Akashic Records. It was not a known thing pretty much back in the 90s. And so 80s, it really had been pulled away from the planet for 1,000 years. And the record keepers were just starting to try and bring it back and contact people like me who were open. And so it was all of that kind of circled around until I realized I could access this huge, expansive information. And that changed my life.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's fascinating. So how did you then, so you had your healing center and then you kind of got this bigger vision. How did you transition online? Like, so you have certification programs, you have online courses, you have a book, you have all sorts of other things, right? That you're doing online. How did you get there from where you were?
Well, I think for me, the easy thing is that, right, that was the 90s.
Everything's possible in the 90s.
Well, I mean, but there wasn't much online back then. And
right.
So I built a whole business kind of physically. I had a brick and mortar company. Mm-hmm. But I always did these kind of big expos, right? Big mm-hmm. conventions where you had a booth and you would talk and all of that. And then I also did sessions over the phone, but I would teach in person. So I had a training that I built and manuals and the whole school I was building out and teaching again and again and again here in the Bay Area, San Francisco Bay Area. And so probably about somewhere around, I don't know, 2005, 6, something, 7, the online piece started to step up, and I got on a couple of big spiritual telesummits. And then what would happen was if you get on a big summit, then other people would call you and say, you want to be on my summit too. And then I started to teach online workshops because I had my whole course curriculum. I just said, well, I'll break it into smaller pieces. And so, I mean, over the years, it's changed. I used to teach it as, 2 7-hour days on the weekend when I did it live here. I tried that online, didn't work quite as well. So then I broke it into once a week for 6 weeks. And then I broke it into twice a week for 3 weeks, because 6 weeks, and so again, it's been kind of an evolving process as we have evolved and online has changed, right? So I still teach online, and again, as the energy changes, the record keepers say to me, it's time to do something different, like write another book. So I'm publishing my third book this summer or fall, and they really just, speak to me and give me these messages. Time to write another book. Let's change the format of this workshop and take people deeper. So just, I really follow the Akashic guidance for my business as well as for my life.
That's great. So give us a sense of like, what has it meant for you to be able to serve more people? Do you still have your brick and mortar location?
No,
not at all. So what is it like to be able to serve more people online? I assume some of your courses are not live, right? Some of them are recorded and out there for people to just consume whenever they want to. How has that changed your life in terms of being able to help more people?
Well, it absolutely does make it easier to help more people. I have really students all over the world, and I try, when I teach live, when I do my live workshop, I try and teach sometimes kind of in the morning here in California and sometimes in the evening. So when I teach in the evening, that reaches Australia, New Zealand, kind of the whole Asia an area. And then when I do morning, that'll catch Europe as well as the US. And so, so that, works well. And yet there's plenty of people who take it because they want it now, and they listen to the recording when they wake up. Or I've had people in Europe who are getting online with me at 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning because they want to learn this now. Right. And so, but I do have home study classes. And so, of course, over the years, I can record a class and then I can turn that into a home study. So you can always get that for a little bit of a lesser price. And then my live ones there, you're with me, you get to ask more questions, right? So I've made that a little bit more valuable by having me present, holding that energy for you, answering your questions on these live teaching courses. So it's, I teach you to learn to read your records. I teach you to go deep into your records. And I actually have an Akashic Career Mastery year-long program where I teach people to be certified Akashic consultants, to do readings and healings for clients, and then to create their business. So it's about the Akasha and the readings and the healings and our own business coaching for really spiritual entrepreneurs.
And I think that's great. I think so often we think about putting out courses, like the content that you teach, but then also you've taken it to that next level, which is certifying people to be able to do what you do so you can make kind of a bigger reach out there. So so that's great. So one of the things that I know that course creators or people who in particular work one-on-one with people and then transfer to more online, sometimes struggle with the connection they get to make with people who are especially watching their recorded courses or their home study courses, as you called them. So how can you talk to me about that? Because, you're in a very connected place when you're working with people, right? And so I would assume that when you had to make that transition from being connected, being able to see someone's energy and be able to actually teach in that way versus when it went online and having somebody say consume it without you even being there and you being able to kind of be a part of their energy, how did you make that shift for yourself? Because I think that's really difficult for a lot of people who think they have to be there present, and that you can actually have a good experience without that.
Yes, absolutely. And So I think it's kind of interesting and complicated because of what I do. So for years and years, I've done readings over the phone, right? Where I don't see you at all. And interestingly, because I'm in your Akashic Records, which is part of this etheric energy, I don't need to see you at all. I'm talking, having an ongoing conversation with your personal Akashic Record Keepers, these beautiful beings of light that are your librarians working in your library. And so I'm having much more of a vertical conversation, answering your questions. And so the visual has never particularly been a part of, for me, right? So I didn't have that. That didn't block me because I was good anyway. And what I know is that the Akashic Records, again, is a vibration. It's a high etheric vibration. And that is held, and it's an energy that I hold, whether you're there or not, whether you can see me or not. People, when I do readings around the world, people can feel that energy. And they feel often energy moving, things changing. Whether you're in Australia or you're in San Francisco down the street, it doesn't matter. It's always, part of the ether. It's part of the unified field of source. So.
Yeah, that's great. And they're getting your energy, online or in person or over the phone.
Right. Yeah. Right. And because there really truly is no time and space, it's hard for us to wrap our brains around that. But what I do know is that if someone listens to one of my recorded healing calls, they will get that healing, even if it's 2 years later.
I love that. Because I think that that's what we forget, right? I think that we forget that if we're creating something, even if it's 2 years later, it's still putting out that vibration of what we've created and in impacting that person in the way that we intended it to happen.
Right. Yeah. And honestly, because we have these etheric libraries and librarians, they're actually always there with you. So when we do some healing work, a pre-recorded course or healing call, I have membership programs where I do energetic healing for people every month. Your record keepers will kind of energetically tap in when you move into that field and space. So they're literally present with you in this moment, even if I recorded it, 10 years ago.
Fascinating. Awesome. Okay. So what is one big sort of tip or lesson or something that you want to leave with my listeners around anything that you want to share?
Thank you. Well, what the record keepers are saying is follow your heart. If a coach or somebody who's trying to help you, a business partner, whoever it might be, is telling you to do something that does not feel in alignment to you, to the work you are envisioning, creating, definitely take that step back, take a few moments, do some of your own inner work. Is it in my highest and best? For myself and my business to do this marketing, to hire this person, to work with this, so we can ask our heart and our soul pretty simply. We all are intuitive if we tap into that and just check in. Is this in my highest and best good? Is this in my business's highest and best good to do whatever it might be? And if it feels uncomfortable, definitely stop. That's why I really, share that story. People would say, don't talk about the Akashic Records. That's your secret sauce. Talk about the benefits. Nope, the Akashic Records are the business. It is the benefit of understanding your soul's journey. And that speaks to us in so many different ways, because who doesn't want to ask some of their big questions? Why am I here? What's my purpose? Am I actually married to my soulmate or to one of my soul family members? Why am I challenged with money or love, right? Those big questions, we actually can get them answered very specifically in our own Akashic records, which is why I do readings for people, but I teach people to access this energy and this information for themselves. So they have this guidance for themselves and their business every day.
That's great. I was going to say, how do we do that? And you said readings or your courses. So that's great, because I think that's where a lot of people kind of get stuck, is that they know that they don't have that clarity. They don't have that sort of sense of purpose. And sometimes you need help with that, right? Sometimes you're blocked for whatever reason. You need somebody else to kind of help unblock or give you kind of the map or the path.
Yes, absolutely. And that's why readings can be very, very valuable for people who have, I have business people come to me and say, is it in my highest and best interest to, buy this property or have this person as the business manager? And we'll ask in their Akashic records. And sometimes those people will come to me a couple times a year for business questions because they don't really want to learn. And then sometimes they want to learn because they have lots of business questions and personal questions. So it's, obviously very personal for each person.
Right. Oh, this has been fascinating. So one question I always ask is, what's one tool or resource or book that you recommend to my listeners that will help them in this journey?
Well, I would definitely say my book, From Questioning to Knowing, 73 Prayers to Transform Your Life, is a great book if you're interested in knowing more about the Akashic Records, learning more. And then what the Akashic Record Keepers gave me was 73 healing prayers to help us work through a lot of just the blocks that we have around shame or blame or guilt or trauma in our lives or, misalignment. So 73 healing prayers that are channeled from the Akashic Records. So it's a more personally oriented, I will say, but when we can start to align ourself, our soul, that's how we really step into our divine purpose and align to creating a business that really our heart and soul desire.
That's great. Well, thank you for that. Awesome. Well, Lisa, it was so nice to have you on the podcast today. If you want to learn more about Lisa, the book she has, or the programs that she has, check out the show notes. We have all of her details in there. And I look forward to this coming out and Lisa, having all my listeners hear what you have to say. So thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you. It has been a pleasure.
I hope you enjoyed today's episode. The best thing you can do is to take action on an idea or tip that resonated with you. To help you take action, I have a free gift for you that you can download in the show notes. During each episode, we publish an action plan worksheet and other helpful takeaways from our speakers in the Course Building Secrets Creators Lab. To register for free, click on the link in the show notes. Enjoy.
Hey everybody, are you a business owner ready to streamline and scale your business? Imagine solving the biggest business challenges with clarity, a strategy, and a clear plan. Hey, I'm Bryan, and I want to invite you to take the first step towards transforming your business with a free 30-minute discovery call. This call is an opportunity to discuss your goals, identify key challenges, and learn how my mentorship program can help you achieve the success you're aiming for. In just a half hour, we'll explore how you can scale your business by enhancing your authority strategy, engagement strategy, and retention strategy. You'll get personalized advice and a clear path forward. Ready to take the first step? Click on the link below that's in the show notes to book your free discovery call now. I hope to talk to you soon.